Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Blindspot as well as the latest episode of the Blacklist. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Blindspot, you can skip to what I'd say about this week's episode of the Blacklist. But first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Blindspot. A lot of interesting things in this episode. We have the return of Bill Nye the Science Guy, which I love it. Essentially, this has to deal with what is essentially bees have been genetically modified to include this toxin of the same toxin that's in pufferfish that can kill people. And the fact is that at first they don't know about the bees and stuff like that. They just know about where the toxin might be being potentially made, and it turns out that it's a place that Bill Nye is consulting at, and she has to treat her dad kind of like a suspect. I love Kurt being like, you know what, because it's Patterson's like, my dad's a good guy, there's no way he'd be behind this, and Kurt's like, yeah, he's an American hero, and you have Rich being like, nah, secret bad guy says, I can tell, that bow tie doesn't fool me one bit. And I love it when it comes down to it. Kurt's like, you know what, I'll go in there with you, Patterson, it might help if he sees a familiar face. And she's like, you mean his daughter? And Kurt kind of goes, yeah. I love that, because I forgot how much of a fan of Bill Nye he is, especially when they play the video, and I love it too. Can we look in the background? Literally everyone in the lab stops to watch it too, and Kurt's in when it's laughing. You have Jane kind of smiling because it's like, oh, look at him, look at Kurt light up. He's so adorable type of look. It just, it just kind of I just love it so good. I even love that moment where Jenny was suggesting something, and Patterson's like, yeah, we already got someone on that. That's why I already sent someone to do that thing, because it's something she hadn't really thought of. And then Rich is like, wait, we did? I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's totally what that was about. I even love it later on when Rich is like, oh, you sound a little jealous because she's starting to suspect Jenny. And then it's like, she's like, no, I'm not jealous. And he's like, yeah, you shouldn't be jealous of anything. You got this lab, you got me, you got this, you got me, and you got a whole bunch of board games. It's like, you're accomplished. You shouldn't feel like that. Because it turns out Jenny also went over, because I thought it was I thought the way they were handling this, I thought it was going to be oh, Jenny's so in love with Bill. I thought that's what it was. It's like, no. It's like Bill and your mom, brought me over for lasagna on my birthday. It's so that totally couldn't have been me who signed all these papers and stuff like that, because I was too busy kicking their tail butts at, God, what's that board game she was referencing? Catan. I'm not that familiar with the board game, but nevertheless, I just love that, and it kind of bothered Patterson, because it's you guys never invite me over, and Bill Nye's the fact of the matter is you're always busy, and and your work is very important. He's like, you're my little superhero. And I love Rich being like, oh, which superhero? Totally Batman, right? That would make me Catwoman, which I look great in Alita's art. I just love that. That's so good. I even love at one point she goes, okay, Virginia, and then Jenny's like, Jenny is not short for Virginia. It's just because Patterson kind of felt a little awkward, because even later on, it's oh, we got to save these bees. You don't have to send out, kick out the old to bring in the new, younger version or whatever like that. And, Bill sat her down and was like, we're not talking about the bees anymore. All right, we're talking about you and Jenny. He's like, the fact of the matter, because she almost felt like she was being replaced. But he's like, I never replaced you. You're my daughter. I love you. And the fact is, it's just the fact is we haven't spent that much time together, because we're like Neptune and Pluto. We're just, orbiting, in different orbits. And then she's like, wait, are you calling me a dwarf planet? And he's like, because he was almost like, how do I worm my way out of this situation? I even love that him, you have Kurt making a bee pun, and even Bill and I being like, oh, that's a good bee pun, Kurt. I love it. It's just so much fun, and it's just it's so good. I just didn't expect him to go back to that storyline of Patterson's dad being Bill Nye. It's part of the continuity, so they could pull from that at any point in time. I love it so much, though. But it's kind of adorable that Patterson kind of got all weird. It's like, oh, so does she, mom fix the lasagna the way she does before with squash in it and stuff like that? And Bill and I being like, yeah, that's literally the only way to make lasagna. Which to me, I'm like, huh, that's interesting. I've never had squash in lasagna, just because I don't really like squash. I've never actually even tried it, but still. I do love lasagna though, but nevertheless, I just thought it was adorable that she kind of felt a little, scared with the whole situation. But luckily, a combination of her and Jenny helped save the day. So it's like, hey, we're in this together. Because for Jenny, she wants to impress Bill Nye. That's what I was kind of dropping earlier, but I thought it was kind of a love thing, but it was more probably I respect him as a mentor type of thing. It was never any kind of I'm in love with him type of thing. And for her, it's just she's always competing with Patterson because Patterson, it's I always hear the story about how when you were 9 years old, you built a supercomputer. It's just Jenny wants to impress him, but it's he already has an amazing daughter. How can I compare? But Patterson's no, you're amazing all on your own. And it's them working together ended up saving the day. So I thought that was pretty dope. I even love that one of the bad guys was hey, do you see who this is? She's and the lady with the group, it's I don't care if he's, Mary Queen of Scots. Because the guy was almost being this is Bill Nye the Science Guy. I love that he was kind of nerding out a little bit. You sound kind of come on, dude, it's Bill Nye the Science Guy. Come on, we can't be holding Bill Nye the Science Guy hostage and threatening to kill him. Come on. That was just so crazy to me. What was also interesting, too, is Bill Nye being oh yeah, you can always invite your boyfriend over for dinner with me and your mom. And she's boyfriend? What are you talking about? It's oh, I guess you're not, officially dating or whatever. It's but you and Rich have really good chemistry. She's we really need to hang out more if you think me and Rich are dating. Because I'm but the fact is, they would make a cute couple just because of the way they operate. They work well as a team. But then I'm still not 100% sure where Rich and Boston stand, which I love. It's oh, we need an artist. I'll talk about that later on in a bit. But it was oh, we need a sketch artist. And Rich is I know just a guy. And you have Kurt being not Boston. And he's why do you have to ruin everything? But that was a pretty neat side of the episode. And then there's the other side of things, when it deals with... I'll go ahead and talk about the whole Sandstorm situation in the episode, because they, finally... Well, for one, we're taking a trip down memory lane with Jane, because obviously she's embracing the side of Remy more, and she's honestly, Remy wasn't that... because it's nice to go through that place without every single thing, representing trauma or some, bad stuff she did as Remy. It's no, there's actually good stuff in there. There's, poetry she had written as... Remy, which is kind of adorable, and Kurt's reading it and stuff. Also, the fact is that toucans are her favorite animal or something, little adorable things like that. But also, they end up kind of trailing down this whole thing of finding out, oh yeah, there's this lady named Jessica who's connected to Sandstorm. I was starting to think because my thought before is oh, maybe this is a biological child that Shepard had, but I'd completely forgotten. Wasn't it this show, I think? Yeah, because I forgot. Shepard can't biologically... She couldn't have had kids because of the area she grew up in. The water was polluted. It's one of the many reasons that kind of sent her down kind of the route that she did. Because I forgot what the exact thing was, but that's why she held on to Roman and Remy so tight, because she could never have kids of her own. I'd completely forgotten about that until just now. It's so there's no way she'd have any biological children running around, and because she was young when it the damage had happened to her. She was young. Not unless I'm confusing this with another show, but I'm pretty sure that was one thing about Shepard was the water near where she lived was messed up, chemicals in it type of stuff, and she can't have kids. I think a lot of women in that area could have kids because of that. So. But nevertheless, I do love that Rich shows up at the end being hey guys, because, yeah, I thought you guys would want that sketch of me. Oh, am I interrupting something? They're yes. And he's do you want somebody to film it? They're no. He's hey, the offer's always on the table. I'm why do you have to be such a weirdo, Rich? I love it. But it turns out the person, Jessica, that got sketched was Kurt's mom, which shouldn't be too surprising considering the fact is, Shepard always took an interest in Kurt. Why wouldn't she take an interest in his life? I mean, literally, that's what Jane represented. Jane was supposed to be Taylor's show. It was meant to be something in Kurt's orbit, that he would keep her close and protect her, and potentially, Jane would worm her way into his heart. That was kind of the whole plan. So it's and obviously, he was a centerfold to a lot of Sandstorm's plans. So it seems his mom is too. What role she has to necessarily play in all of this, we don't know. I thought didn't his mom die? Yeah, because didn't she die in like a car accident? Because didn't Roman set that whole situation up? Because I remember correctly, because that was a point of contention where it was like, oh, so does that mean she's actually still alive? Does she not having like, did she like lose her memory or something from the car crash and she's like a different person? Is that maybe why she never came to find? But didn't they have a funeral for her and everything? Or am I thinking of someone else? I could have sworn Kurt's mom was dead. Maybe that's the real shocker and everything too. Like, I'm blanking. It's been a while since the earlier, because that was like season 2 when that came up about like him killing. Or was that someone else? That might not have necessarily been his mom. Maybe it was someone that was like family to him. I don't remember. I could have sworn it was Taylor's mom I'm thinking of. Jeez, I got that completely wrong. I was like, I thought his mom was dead. It's like, no, Taylor's mom is who I'm thinking of that Roman killed. I'm completely wrong. So completely ignore me on that. But yeah, I was like, yeah, because I thought his mom was dead. His mom has never come up in conversation. Maybe she did season 1 because obviously his dad and sister are around a lot more than. Obviously his dad's dead now, but like, yeah, like I don't remember if his mom, like I said, that's back in season 1, so I don't remember if his mom ever came up in conversation. So she's not something he's ever really talked about over the course of the show. So maybe she just was never in his life like that, or what? I don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason why she went after. Well, because she was trying to protect Jessica, because Jessica is an informant for Sandstorm, but who knows how long she had been in that realm of things. Like, even before Shepard chose Kurt, maybe Jessica's the one that kind of put that in her mind to do that. Who knows? And it's definitely going to be interesting to find out what that's all about. What role Jessica plays, and is she going to be, you know, what was it that she took from that room before the FBI showed up there, you know? So we'll ultimately have to wait and see what that ends up being. Like, that's an element. That's really interesting. Now Kurt's got to cross paths with his mom again. Like I said, depending on what their relationship is like. But another interesting aspect about this is obviously Tasha is hell-bent on finding Dominic and stopping whatever it is that Madeline has got going on. Claudia shows up because both of them are a little pissed because they feel like obviously the FBI for Tasha and MI6 for Claudia aren't really handling this Madeline situation like they should, because it's just kind of like, oh, Madeline's locked up, case closed. But they both know Madeline enough to know the lady is too dangerous to just, you know, that be the end of everything. And so what was interesting is, like, obviously Claudia's like, okay, we'll work together on this alone. But then Tasha kept wanting to bring in the FBI team, and Claudia was super against that. So she was like, you know what, basically she kind of stormed out, but it's like she recognized who the person was in the surveillance tape, you know, because they got that thing that they couldn't decipher, that file of Dominic's they couldn't decipher. She sent to the FBI team, which Claudia was also pissed about. It's like, we're supposed to be handling this ourselves because other people were kind of getting away. And so Claudia goes out on her own. The moment she did, I was like, she's going to get herself killed. And lo and behold, sadly, it does end up that way. And for Tasha, it hit home because for her, it's like, that could have been me, easily have been her. And I thought, because I was hoping, because like obviously Tasha got back with the FBI team, they are her family and everything, so she's working with them again. So for her, it was like, no, let's wait for the team so we can have it back up with this whole situation. But you know, Claudia is so used to handling things on her own, much like Tasha kind of has gotten to that point, that she didn't want to wait. She's like, I got this. So, but Tasha's like, that could have easily have been me, because I'm so used to working alone, and she's so desperate to try and stop, you know, Madeline. But you know, Rita's like, the fact is, we're here for you. Like, you know, even with just a team, I'm here for you. I never forget that. I always got your back. And you know, she's staying with Reed and everything. And I think it's good, like, things kind of played out the way they did, because now, like, Tasha and the team have made up, so she knows, like, even though she was kind of handling a lot on her own, there was still that part of her is like, no, let's not move without the team, you know? She was letting them know, because she knows, like, she doesn't want to jeopardize her relationship with them again. And I'm like, okay, I know I should be handling this on my own, but I'm let you guys know, hey, I got this, you know? But, you know, when you get this, you know, message, come immediately, you know? So, but I do like that aspect to it. I mean, the episode title is Ohana, which, you know, Ohana means family. And the reason why I know that is because Lilo and Stitch. So when it's all said and done, like, that title episode of the episode really resonates throughout the entire episode. Obviously, Patterson and her dad, Kurt now with his mom, and obviously, Tasha with the FBI team of being like, yeah, this is her family, and they got her back with all of this. So, obviously, they now know that Helios is still in play, that's Madeline's thing, that Dominic's still carrying out for her. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to find out, once again, like, what Helios actually is, and can the team stop what's to come. So it's definitely interesting because we are definitely hitting closer to the end of the season. There's only a couple episodes left, so I'm interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. And now moving on to this week's episode of The Blacklist. A lot of interesting things went down this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's focus on the Blacklister in this episode, her name being Lady Luck, but her real name being Agatha. She's a very interesting Blacklister, like, the whole, like, from the very beginning, when you kind of see the pattern immediately being like, she's getting gamblers to kill gamblers, because, like, the person that he ended up killing, that Henry ended up killing, her name was Betsy, and it's like, oh, she just happened to be clear of debt, and I'm like, so Lady Luck is, I was trying to figure, I figured it had to have something to do with her husband and stuff like that, and it turns out that's what it is. It's kind of sad, because for her, it's like, these are people who are committing, they're gamblers, and basically gambling destroys lives, it destroys families. It's a terrible addiction, and her way of ending it is basically like, oh, I'm gonna pay you this money to kill this previous debt person, because once the person has cleared their debt, killing them makes it so that they never continue their gambling habits, and their family is taken care of, because they never have to worry about this person constantly throwing away their life savings, or in Ned's case, like his child's college fund and stuff like that. So you understand why she did what she did. Doesn't justify what she did, especially because when you understand like what brought it all about, it's like, oh yeah, her husband had a gambling debt, going to get a lottery ticket. There was an accident that ended up killing their son, literally while she's giving birth to their daughter. So it's like, of course you're going to harbor a heavy ass resentment towards him, but then in general she looks at gambling as a cancer on any person's family, so she thinks she's doing the right thing by getting rid of the gambler. She's scraping away the cancer in her family, and so she kept her husband alive the entire time. It's basically like, hey, I want you to see what I did with this blood money of yours, show you what happens, it's like, I want you to be alive to see what I'm doing with this money. And it turns out she lied to her daughter about so much of it. The daughter thought her dad had died like a year after the accident. That's not the case. She thought her mom had given the money away, which was not the case, but in a sense you can make the argument she was. In her mind, like I said, she thought she was doing like a charitable thing, because she saw how much gambling destroyed her life. She see how it's destroying everyone else. It's like, interestingly enough, the actor who plays Ned, that's you see him pop up in a few things, but like one thing I always associate with him is once upon a time he played Jiminy Cricket. I think his character's name is Archie, like in Storybrooke. But nevertheless, what's also sad too is like you see at the end though that the daughter, she's like, oh, I'm gonna keep mom's operation going, and it's almost like this, just like it's kind of, and I guess maybe that's the whole point of it too. It's almost like this cycle. It's like, they talk about gambling being a poison, but it's like their family thing of like this Lady Luck thing will probably be a cancer too, that even her daughter's son will probably eventually pick it up, because he'll probably be like, no, it's for the right thing. So I'm curious, is she going to, I would assume she'd keep it up, but she'd have to be careful about it because the FBI's on to her, but they probably never suspect her. So, but now that she's seen like they caught on to her mom's operation, she's probably going to make things more difficult. I'm curious to see, will that be something that ever circles back around in some shape or form? Maybe, maybe not. The only reason why this really got put on her radar in this particular case is because, oh, Henry got involved, and that's because, Reddington knows, like, oh, what happens with people involved with Lady Luck, and Henry's necessary to find the third estate, which he ends up, kind of leading them down that path, because I think, when I was looking at the episode titles, I think the next episode is titled the third estate. So we're going to be dealing with that next episode. But so obviously, like, it all works out in the end, but still, it's just kind of sad. Like I said, I feel like it's a cycle on its own, just like gambling. The fact is of trying to kill these gamblers, because I guess the whole point, it makes you wonder. I mean, I guess because it's a thing that feeds itself, because it's like, it makes you wonder if they weren't willing to take this bet on themselves, would this even be, what would she do then? Would she let them go? But then I'm like, no, because the whole point is that they are gamblers. They're always going to take that bet, because they think it's a sure thing. And so it is like this thing that feeds it's a beast that feeds itself, because of course every gambler is going to be like, oh, like I want an opportunity to fix my life. And it's also a sure thing. No matter what it is, I'm going to bet on myself. Yes, because they just can't help themselves. It makes you wonder, will there ever be that one person that says no? But with the way essentially the house always wins, so it's always stacked against you, So I don't know, it's just something interesting to think about. I was just sitting there thinking about, but nevertheless. Another part of this episode is obviously Rustler still looking into Katarina. Obviously, like Liz was like, yo, I told you to let this go, because she ended up seeing the file. But it's like, I sit this in like weeks before we even talked. I'm like, oh, you're such a liar, Rustler. But because it makes you wonder at this point in time, it's like, are you doing it for yourself, or are you doing it for Liz? I think he does admittedly do it for both. Yes, because he wants to know the truth about Reddington, but I think he also wants Liz to know the truth. She deserves to know, because he is coming to be her father and everything, and now she, obviously she thinks she knows what happened to her real father and everything. For her, it's like, Reddington takes care of me, he does good. Yes, he benefits from these situations, but the fact of the matter is, it's kind of like a necessary evil, so she's kind of okay not asking questions anymore. Once again, comes a whole equation that hasn't been brought back into it, is, what about Jennifer? Like, when she pops up looking for answers, it's going to be interesting. But Rustler, getting help from his friend, ends up finding out about Katarina's mom, which is interesting because we know about Katarina's dad being alive because Red has talked to him on multiple occasions over the course of the series. And so it's interesting. So I guess they're divorced. I guess they're not together. I guess because that little cabin is just where he stayed hidden this entire time. But that might be something we see kind of circle back around. Like, I wonder, does Red keep tabs on Katarina's mom? Obviously he does her dad, but what about her mom? So probably if Rustler goes asking questions, Reddington's probably going to find out about it. Maybe, potentially. It's also interesting, too, because Rustler was going to tell Liz until Liz was like, honestly, I know how much finding out the truth about Reddington is important to you because you've been hunting him for years, and I appreciate the fact that you're letting this go. So what do you have to say? And he's like, nothing, it can wait. I'm curious, will he actually ever tell her? Probably not until he gets some like concrete stuff. Then he got some concrete stuff by finding Katarina's mom, because that proves that, like, hey, if she's still like her mom was put in hiding, that means Katarina's still alive too, which all that's important to Liz, Well, which is interesting now that I'm sitting here thinking about it. Well, because even Katarina's dad thinks she's dead. So her mom might be the only one that might know that she actually is still alive. Or at the very least, she might be the connection to figuring out all the secrets. But I think it's kind of alluding to the fact is that, because she was alive enough. Because one of the witnesses that was there to be like, oh, yeah, she did this. One of them had, like, some fake IDs and stuff like that. So it had to be like, because that's what set Rustler on this path. Was like, oh yeah, like she didn't exist until like after she gave the statement of like, oh yeah, she saw Katarina that day. So it's like, okay, so that's her mom. So she had to have set that up, ahead of time. So it does seem like Katarina might be alive, and that might be something even Red doesn't know. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But I think her dad doesn't know. If her dad doesn't know, it's interesting because that means Red does know, and maybe he just didn't tell her dad, Liz might not be the only one he's keeping secrets from. Because to be fair, once again, it's like she got remarried. So it might have been a thing of like, maybe he did. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I said, who knows what? There's so many damn secrets being kept all around. So it's hard to say like who knows what. So that's definitely going to be interesting. Like I said, I'm curious. I feel like he's going to tell her the next episode, but maybe he won't. Maybe he'll keep that secret because he's not supposed to look into it. And he doesn't want to piss Liz off. But especially if it leads to the truth, Liz might find herself drawn back in, especially if it turns out her mom is still alive and everything, So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what ends up coming about all of that. But another interesting side of this episode was also everything with Red. It makes sense. Red basically is like, yo, a lot of people in my organization try to take advantage of the fact is, hey, I was locked up. Which, to be fair on their part, it's like, yeah, someone being put on death row, literally that close to being executed, no one thought he'd find a way out of this, especially the way things kind of went down in court. Like, no one expected it. So that's why everyone took advantage like they did. Which, to be fair, this isn't the first time that's happened over the course of the series. There was a time when like Red had been, his organization had gotten broken up by Kaplan, that the Vultures came out, you know, to try and take him down. So not just necessarily people in his organization, but people in general. So it's like people always come after Red because it's like you're on top. People are going to come clawing at you when they think you're down for the count. But that's the thing. Reddington always finds a way to claw his way back to the top himself, you know. So. But then it's like we start working our way through different people. There's that first dude. It's like, okay, so you did some stuff. Okay, so going forward, you owe me an extra 10% interest for any payments you pay me. He's like, oh, come on, that's not fair. It's like, you know what? You're right, 15%. And it's like, yep, that's totally fair. There's a dude, Martin. Apparently, he had set up kind of like a drug trade situation using Reddington's resources and people, and he's been dealing meth. Like obviously on a larger scale, but like Reddington doesn't deal with that. He's like, no, that's not my operation. I guess drugs in general he doesn't fuck with, or it seems like in particular meth. But I think he might be one of the, I don't remember. I didn't know, maybe that's come up before. I don't remember him not being super into like selling drugs and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting. You're like, you have a moral high ground when it comes to all of this. Which is kind of interesting when you think about it, because like Reddington would not mess with he would not fuck with Walter White. They really would not see eye to eye, no matter what, under the circumstances. But nevertheless, for him, it's like he ended up killing Martin. And I caught that too. It ends up being the thing that Reddington catches Smokey on too. Is like Smokey was like, yeah, he has a family. The moment he said that, even I was like, you said you didn't know Martin. How the hell did you know he had a family? I'm like, you fucked up, Smokey. And that's the same thing Reddington caught him on. Like, I'm sure Reddington already kind of had some idea, but probably wasn't 100% sure. Because even he was like, oh yeah, you and Martin, I'm surprised you two haven't actually met before. And just the way, I mean, that shows you, that's impressive. Like, Smokey was able to keep calm, cool composure, even though he knew he was one of the people operating behind Reddington's back. Because for Reddington, what makes it worse, he did the worst thing. It's like, yeah, that first student, yeah, he skimmed some money. He did this and that, but hey, that's fine. The other, Martin, he did a terrible thing because he came up with this whole operation. You did the worst atrocity because you made that come true. Because for Smokey, he made the operation a big operation. And for Reddington, it's like the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, your only loyalty is to yourself. You're always going to do stuff that benefits you. Yes, you work with friends, you work with foes, you even work with me, but at the end of the day, it's always going to come back to you being the number one priority. You're always going to take advantage of any situation to make yourself better. And for him, it's like you made this whole operation. Yes, Martin was bad, but the fact of the matter is what made the situation worse is because you made his idea real. If it wasn't for you, his idea would have just stayed that, an idea. So Smokey's like, oh, the fact is I'll just dismantle the operation, but it's like it's too late for that. You know, Reddington saying that whole analogy, you know, basically being like, you know, flying is life, falling is death. It's like, oh, poor Smokey. It's such a shame because him and, you know, Dembe were playing that game together like throughout the entire episode. You're like the moment Smokey showed up at the beginning, I was like, Smokey's behind this too, isn't he? Like, I kind of had a feeling just because Red chose him to kind of gather up all the people who were basically screwing Reddington over in some shape or form because they thought he was out of power and stuff like that. I'm like, the fact is, and you could tell Smokey just seemed a little bit on edge, just a little bit, but he seemed like he was doing a good job of trying to hide it, so. But, like, another reason why I feel bad about this whole Smokey situation is because Smokey's one of those associates we got to see him make. He made that association last season after, you know, after dealing with the whole Mr. Kaplan situation. When that season 5, he ended up meeting Smokey because he met the lady that, because it's like, oh, because him and Smokey and that lady, they obviously had their little back and forth, that other associate of Reddington's. And it's just such a shame because, like, oh, Smokey, we got to know Smokey a little bit. And it's just kind of a shame that things kind of played out like this. But a crazy thing for Reddington is, it's like, it wasn't even just about what Smokey did. It was meant to send a message to everyone. If you know who betrayed me, because that's what this whole thing was. It's a witch hunt, not just about the people doing stuff in his organization. It's also about finding out who betrayed him and sent him to prison. And Reddington's kind of like, yeah, a lot of people's fates were kind of to be determined, but the person who sold him out, it's like, oh, their fate is basically been sealed. Like I said, they're getting Mr. Kaplan. Obviously, I'm sure Reddington would make sure it was like a permanent thing because he didn't do that with Kate because he got sentimental and she came back to screw him over. So there's that side of things. So I figured that whoever it was would share that same fate. And Denbei's in that tough position because like Reddington's going to keep sweeping through the organization, killing people, whether they really deserve it or not, just because it's like whoever knows the truth about who sold me out will come forward. Because obviously, what about you, Denbei? If you were in that position, wouldn't you come forward to stop the killing and stuff like that? He's like, I hope whoever knows has basically a conscience like you. And now Denbei's in that tough position because he's supposed to be, you know, Reddington's keeper of secrets. Now he's also Liz's keeper of secrets, but now it's like other people are going to die if he doesn't tell him it was Liz, because I think there is a part of him that's worried. Even Liz being his own daughter, Reddington might actually kill her. I think that's what he's worried about. I mean, he literally killed Kate, his most trusted associate for the past decades. Like, him and Kate go way back, and he still tried to put a bullet in her head. Well, didn't try. He successfully put a bullet in her head. Just it didn't stick. You know, so it's like, jeez. So obviously, you know, Denbei's worried because I mean, it's not even just that too. It's like he's worried about what Reddington will do if he finds out it is Liz. Like, he might have a breakdown. Because he already lived through one of Liz's betrayals, because he was worried that it was Liz before, and what's also going to make it worse is because Denbei told him, no, it wasn't Liz. And it turns out it will be Liz. Now I'm wondering, is the person he's going to look for going to be... Well, because he already knows that the person behind it is Jennifer. He might sell Jennifer out to protect Liz. And now Liz is probably going to be in a situation where she has to protect Jennifer, but then Jennifer ends up getting killed. And that resets Liz on her path to taking Reddington down, because it's like, no matter what, like, you killed my sister, now it's on type of situation. That might be where we see this kind of trading along. So we'll see. Like, to protect Liz, because he cares about Liz and wants to protect hers and Reddington's relationship, he might sell Jennifer out. But we'll see in the long run, because you know Denbei doesn't want to do that, because he knows the moment this truth comes out, somebody's going to die. So, and the fact is Jennifer hasn't popped up in the story for a little bit, and she hasn't circled back around with like wanting to know the truth and stuff like that, makes me go, it just makes that seem like that's going to be the case. I kind of felt like that might have been something that ended up happening anyway, that Jennifer would be the one that kind of got found out and not Liz, and that would set... I kind of already said that before, didn't I? And now I'm sitting here thinking about it. I think I brought that up before. That's where that's also trailing from. Anyway, nevertheless, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, light to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.